Yesterday was 4th of July, and in America that means fireworks. So yesterday we went over to Seaside, Oregon and saw the fireworks show, and it was really awesome. And this is the first time that I tried to photograph fireworks. So in today's video, I'm going to show you some of the things I learned so that next time you go to a fireworks show, you know what to do. So let's get into it. The first thing I learned is there are two ways to shoot fireworks. One is to have a long exposure, and the other is to not. Now, I use two cameras in this scenario. I use the Canon R8 as my long exposure camera because it had the full frame sensor, and I just thought, let's try it for that. And for the normal photos, I use the R7. And then for the long exposure, you're obviously going to need a tripod. I use the Peak Design travel tripod. It came in really handy, nice and compact, and I was able to carry it around all day without having it be an issue. So I recommend that tripod. Now, as far as settings and things go, there are two ways to do the long exposure. Either have your camera set to like 30 seconds, which I did at the beginning because the camera was setting and it still was bright enough. And then the second way is to use something called bulb mode. And at least for Canon cameras, all you have to do is rotate the dial from the manual mode up one to bulb. And how this works is normally when you take the photo, you just take it and it takes however long exposure you set. But with bulb mode, it takes the photo as long as you press it. Now this can become an issue because now you have to hold the camera the whole time. And even on a tripod, that can cause some motion blur because, all the micro jitters. But with these Canon cameras, if you pull the display out and then have it in bulb mode, you can just tap it to start and tap it to stop, which is awesome. So you don't need an external controller like some cameras need. So if you're doing long exposures, make sure you're in bulb mode. And I would take one test shot to know how long you're gonna need roughly. And it's great because it shows you a timer of how long the photo's been taken. So bulb mode is awesome. And then for the normal photos, I set my shutter to be around 1/100th of a second. Now because we're shooting at night, there isn't a lot of light, but because these are fireworks, well, it doesn't really matter. I would recommend shooting at f1.8 or 2.8, something like that, for the faster shutter. And then for something like a 2-minute photo, I set my aperture to f22, or as high as your camera will allow. If you're doing a super long exposure, you may even need ND filters, which is crazy using ND filters at night. But with a long enough of exposure, you're gonna need that. So that's pretty much it for exposure. You can take long exposures or normal photos. And then just make sure to match your exposure level with your f-stop. I would recommend just keeping your ISO at base ISO and adjusting things as necessary. So that's camera settings. Now let's move on to lenses. Now I went to take the fireworks photos and I originally thought that I would use a 70-200. Do not use a 70-200. It is far too much zoom for fireworks. I ended up using the 50 and that was even too much. So most of the night, the photos that actually look good, I shot with the fast exposure with this 18-35, and I used a lot of the times at 18 millimeters. So for fireworks, I would say that wide lenses are better, especially if you're pretty close to where they launched them like I was. If you're super far away, then you're gonna need more zoom, but generally, definitely use a wide lens. You could always crop in later, especially if you're doing 26 megapixels or 35 megapixels like these cameras have. So that's pretty much it. Match your exposure settings, so your shutter speed and your f-stop to make it balanced. You can do long exposure or fast exposure. Use a tripod with long exposures. Again, I recommend the Peak Design travel tripod. And use a wide lens. And if you do all those things, you should be good to go. Now before we end the video, I'm gonna show you a couple photos that I took last night. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing and hit that notification bell to see when the next video comes out. If you have any further questions, let me know in the comment section down below. If you wanna help support the channel, please consider using the Amazon affiliate links below, become a Patreon supporter or channel member. Well, that's it for this video, and I'll see you in the next one. And make sure to come back on Saturday. I bought a new lens and I'm really excited to open it up. So I'll see you then.